So when you start this section off, hopefully you can see the overall gesture of this character. And starting off with the circular part, kind of went over the top of it. There's the center line, and the horizon line coming across this central circle here. And this will give you the circular pieces on the eyes. Same idea with this nose. Kind of cutting across on this section. And when you take a look at the spine, this is the gesture. So when this comes down, curves right on into the tail. And if you can see through this, I kind of drew over the top. It's giving you this shoulder, which is in perspective and also foreshortened, and comes down into the hips for cartoon anatomy of a cat. And then that's giving you this kind of a stick figure from the knee joint for the outstretched leg and the down one below. And for each of the limbs, before they get into the limbs, they put the circular part to represent the section for the feet and the hands. So that's what we're kind of used to. And then if you go ahead and start to flesh out the body, even if you just use a cylinder shape or an oval shape, anything to give it some structure. And then the hips were made with a circular part and kind of the torso, and connecting it, giving it this movable bean shape. Taking a look at the hands we've done before, so you got the circular part. They also have a center line, and that'll be the two parts of the bottom of the hand that you see here, the circles for the fingers. And they do have overlapping segments for the joint. Now the same with the hand. This one has a little more expression to it. And there's the circular part with almost the same idea. With a stick figure, you can overlap these finger parts. But the overlap is helping show the space as well, even though on a small part that's just a figure of the hand, not the whole body. So here's a circular part for the foot. Each of the toes wrapping around. There's a center line for the claw. And again, as you take a look, you can see where the pads of the feet would be underneath to give it this extra structure for the heel. And again, it is a cartoon, so you're trying to simulate everything there. Same with this circle for the toe, overlapping it. And any of the parts where the wrists meet or the sections go down to the ankles are giving you that, and then back to the face. So again, when you take a look at the facial part, try to see the center line for that, the elliptical shape for the eyes. It has a little bit of a eyelid coming down, corresponding with the eyebrows. Little shapes for the hair, the triangle shapes for the ears coming in. You can see some of it, and builds that part off. Now when you have this entire sketch out, now when you do the inking, it becomes a little easier to set up. But what you might want to do is, take a little bit of the graphite off. You can either just lightly rub over this, kind of made a coil out of the eraser, and just kind of softly lightening it up so you can see a definite difference between the two. And just so you can see your line better. And then depending on the style of marker or ink and a brush, we'll try showing you some of that. A little harder to control, but there it is. And you can see there's the mark on the eraser. So it gives you a nice setting. And then it's just a matter of concentrating on the ink style. So for example, there's a thin and the thick of the marker, but I'm just going to go with a thin section. And again, try to wrap around the line so you have a thin and a thick stroke for this part. But let it really wrap around here. So comes across pretty good. And you can see that, say the light's coming from the top, always think of the heavier line coming from the bottom. And that's going to give you a little bit more to work with. And then the overlap, for example, of this leg coming down and around. So I'm just going to make this. You can keep it one solid line. Matches it, comes all the way to the back. Build that up. So it's a big swooping line, same with this part. That gives you some. So I'll do the hand first, and I'll go back into the face. So you can see the underline of the part of the hand, the overlap of these little accent lines. And they show some of the thin and thick there, so that gives you a little bit more to concentrate with, little pads there. And just kind of bringing that little detail there, right there with the looking at with the claws. You're not seeing the opposite side, but you're seeing the underside of it. So that builds that piece up. I'll go back into the head of this. If you start thinking of the nose, this is the part that's curling around here for this section. Again, it's got the teeth kind of out, wrapping that section around. And again, just look at the eyes. Don't push too hard with your marker. Find the highlight end of the section there. Building that up so you can see how it's all pretty much related to it. Creases in the face. You can kind of see the little squash and stretch happening with the head. Section there. And it comes down to this hand. Just like I said, turn the paper so you can see it. Ball shape, you can just sketch it out. Gives you a pretty good look to it. Here's the part where the foot kind of has a little bit of extra shape for the heel built up in there. And the tail. So for the first pass, you kind of have this outlined out pretty good. And then it's just a matter of going back in and heavying up some of the extra lines for the boldness to it. You can try taking the thicker side of this marker and just going over it like that. Kind of see it. So you can always go back and forth between the two tips to build that up. Builds that piece up. You'll be able to see that in there a little bit easier. Again, so there it is with a little bit thicker line. And again, you can continue that. And then go back to the fine point again and just clean up some of the detail. Build that line in there. So it really gives you a little bit more, and I'll add into some of that stuff with the doing a little bit of the shading in there like that, giving a little texture to it. So that's something that you can work on. Good line work. That gives you an overall beginning of the pen and ink there.